Hello, and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened, where we discuss, explore, and connect with fellow empaths, healers, intuitives, and seekers. Welcome, empaths. We are going to be discussing today how to make a stronger connection with your dream team, how to work with your spirit guides, your angels, your higher self, your loved ones who have gone before you, to really help you co-create a richer, fuller life and to just feel more connected to all that is.
See, I love that. And I think sometimes we'll get a gut feeling or a quiet nudge or a sense that we're not alone, and we'll say, "Ooh, is that my guide? How do I get in touch with my guide?" And you've covered this in both of your books, Heavenly Alliance and The Awake Dreamer. And I think that sometimes people are like, "Well, I can't even find my guide. How do I get a better relationship with them?" So, what would be some tips that you can think of that, because we all have them, we're all very equally, we have access. I think that's a good starting point, don't you?
Yeah, I do too. And I think the first thing you can do is just solicit that relationship where you are in a meditative state and you simply put out a request of, I would like to know who's on my team. I would like to have more signs and synchronicities that show me who's on my team. I think another way, at least in my experience and from what I've researched, is to look at what you are naturally drawn to. Like if, for example, if you've always been drawn to indigenous cultures, which ones and why? And could that be a clue that one of those could be on your own team? Is there a country or a culture that you've just always wanted to visit or you can't stop reading books set in that location? Could that be a clue as to where one of your main guides is from? If
Right.
you're always drawn to a certain type of art, could it be that you have that type of artist on your team?
And I think a really good point is sometimes even the terms guides and angels might not fit for you. But it's about tapping into knowing that there's something that's going to help you with your intuition, with your inner wisdom, with your subconscious insight. And it's not about being special or better, or it's about being more present and attuned to getting that relationship started and building on it.
Yes, exactly. And you're going to do that best through meditation, even if that begins with guided meditation. So I think those guided meditations that teach you how to slow down, how to go within, how to work with your own unique energy field are a great place to start. But also just asking for help.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us forget to do that. Like, hey guys, I need some help today. Send some joy guides my way. Or you're driving into work and you're like, oh, I don't feel like being here. You can say, hey guys, I need some help. Send in some worker bee angels to surround me today. That all is important and it creates an energetic link.
A key for me, a key for many people I've spoken with is the connection it should feel calming or supportive, protective, steady, never ever urgent or overwhelming or fear-based.
Yeah.
That's not the energy you're going to feel from someone that wants to work with you. And one of the reasons that I've shared this many times about doing the meditations every morning for the last bit now, and it has really solidified my relationship with my team in a way that I've never felt before. I've always known they were there. I've had one, but it brings through more personality, and you start to get to, and which is an odd thing to use, an odd term to use for someone on your team, but they're a unique energy that you get to know just like you'd know a friend or a family member or a coworker. The more time you spend with them and the more consistent you are with showing up and learning to trust them, the more they'll let you know how they can help you.
Yes, but that comes from learning to slow down, learning to go within, and learning to recognize the very subtle ways in which they communicate. Now, if I'm on my game and I'm meditating every day, I will hear from them very clearly. But if I'm in a busy season of my life, the way they communicate isn't through thoughts, it's more through, it's not even feelings, it's almost like an internal knowing. Like, have you ever gotten just this feeling of Gosh, I need to spend these next 3 months really working hard because something's coming after that. And you can't even, if you said, like, oh, Samantha, why do you have that feeling right now? I couldn't tell you. And yet I'll spend those 3 months working really, really hard, and then something will happen where I need to take time off. And thank God I put that work in before so I can have this time to work on this other thing that's popped up. Or sometimes I'll get a feeling of this is going to be a slow month for you, so you just need to tuck in and enjoy and do some inner work. But again, if you said, "How are you getting that feeling?" I couldn't tell you. It's there before it's there, and I've just learned to trust it. And it's subtle, and their messages are rarely very succinct in terms of why I'm getting that feeling. So it's a lot, I think, to establish a relationship with a guide because it does involve a lot of inner self-reflection and a lot of trust of the unknown.
Right. And learning to trust that connection without losing the discernment, because a lot of people say, how do I even know this is real? And it's not something I'm making up or I want it to be, or I'm convinced. Because I think most people, or a lot of people, shouldn't say most, do have that question when they start working with their guides more, or dream team, or in the angelic realm, or something that's not the same as, oh, I made an appointment and I showed up and I was sitting across a desk from someone. So it isn't that doubt's the problem. That's a really healthy part of the process, but it's reframing it and realizing that it can feel like imagination. It's that same inner channel that we use for imagination is pretty much how intuition and insight show up, which goes back to having that gut feeling that, oh, I'm going to have to buckle down for 3 months.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we have to learn to also work with our imagination and question how much of what we imagine is imaginative.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's a very comforting feeling to know we don't have to do this alone, that there is guidance from the other side, that they want to help us. How many times during readings have you had it come through that, an accident was diverted, or someone should have been hurt more badly, or they didn't get all the different things we've talked about over the years? There was intervention from a loved one in spirit, because I do think the more you build a relationship with your team, the stronger your connection is with your loved ones in spirit.
Yes, I agree. And the stronger you build up that connection, the more you are giving them permission to help you in those trying times.
Right. So, and I was speaking with someone recently, and they said, "Well, I did a meditation. I feel like this is my guide. I got the answer." And then the person said, "But I got the answer I wanted. So, what were they validating that for me, or was I just convincing myself that they were?" And I think that's a
Whoa.
really good question.
That's the mind beep of doing this work, right?
Yes.
It'll really send you spinning like, oh my gosh. But I think what happens is if you keep that validation journal, you'll learn, if you're honest with yourself, you will learn the difference between I really, really want this, and now they're showing it to me, and you feel still unsure and second guessing, or I really, really want this and they're showing it to me. That's the validation I needed. I'm going for it. It all relies on your response to what they're showing you. If they're showing you what you really, really want, and you're like, ugh, I don't really know. I think I'm making that up. I'm not sure. That can mean either, yeah, you are making it up, or no, it is supposed to happen for you, but your response is cueing them that you're not ready. You
Mhm.
still need to gain some confidence, or you still need to gain some clarity about this situation. So that's where it gets to be a whole mixed bag of difficulty in learning how to navigate this invisible world.
And sometimes it can be honoring the emotional reaction that you feel when that message or that feeling or that insight or whatever they're sending you comes through. If you all of a sudden feel incredibly emotional about it, then they're tapping into something that, yes, you do want that to be true, and you may not know how to get there.
Yeah,
But
or you may think you want it and you really don't.
right. And
Or
giving
you
yourself
really,
permission to say, I don't want to do that.
yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. And I think that's completely fine too.
But instead of asking, is this real? Maybe try, is this helpful? Do I feel grounded? Do I feel supported? Because in all the years that, have you ever had something that was negative or trying to put you in a situation that wasn't for your highest and best? It might not always be the answer you want, but it's never mean or vindictive or manipulative.
No, never. No. And I think when you are connecting with your guide in a legitimate way, it will feel calm, comforting, and uh, not emotionless, but it's not filled with excitement or yay or dread. It's just their communication is always very factual to me.
And equally very respectful of your autonomy.
Yes.
It's very similar to talking to people, to humans, or getting insight from other people. Is if there's if there's a shame or pressure or fear, that's probably not coming from a higher source, and that's coming from your own hesitations.
Yes, exactly. And you got to figure out which is yours and which is theirs. But I want to go back to the imagination for a minute because I've always wondered how much of imagination is really imagination and how much of it is connecting with this invisible world, right?
I
Because I think that's so important to consider. And it's tricky. It's tricky because you don't want to rely 100% on your imagination because that can take us into a whole other different set of topics. But I wanted to share something. I think I've mentioned it in both of my books, and it's what Napoleon Hill did to create his imaginative dream team. And it started because he was looking at how when two or more people can come together in harmony and with a one focused goal, he said their minds kind of blended into a shared third brain that he called a master brain. And he would talk about how important it was for people to set up these mastermind groups where they could use their creative imagination to really join together ideas and plans and flashes of inspiration. And he said that when people came together like this, gut feelings and hunches and intuition actually increased. But what he was really researching this, he didn't know anyone that he could create a mastermind group with. So he created his own and he called it his cabinet of invisible counselors. And this is what he did. He created 9 people in history that he admired the most. So his group was Ralph Waldo Emerson, Thomas Paine, Thomas Edison, Charles Darwin, Abraham Lincoln, Luther Burbank, Napoleon Bonaparte, Henry Ford, and Andrew Carnegie. And every night when he would fall asleep, he would imagine that they were all sitting around a table and he would ask them questions, right? So he says, just before going to sleep at night, I would shut my eyes and see in my imagination this group of men seated with me around my council table. And here I had not only an opportunity to sit among those whom I considered to be great, but I actually dominated the group and served as the chairman. He said I had a very definite purpose in indulging my imagination through these meetings. My purpose was to rebuild my own character so it would represent a composite of the characters of my imaginary counselors. So he would ask them for knowledge on anything that he wanted, and he would address them each individually. Like he would say, Mr. Emerson, from you, I desire the ability to understand nature. If you could impress upon my subconscious mind whatever qualities you possess to understand the laws of nature, I would appreciate it. And he said, Napoleon, I desire to acquire from you the marvelous ability to inspire men and arouse them to be even greater and more determined. So I thought that was a really neat idea to just kind of cultivate your own group of people that you admire and then almost start it off as like a nightly meeting where you welcome each person to the table and you tell them why they've been invited and what you need from them. And he said that after many months of this nightly procedure, I was astounded that these imaginary figures became apparently real. He said each of these 9 men developed unique individual characteristics, which surprised him. For example, he said Lincoln was always late. When he came in, he'd walk in very slowly with his hands clasped behind him. He said he always wore an expression of seriousness on his face. Rarely did I see him smile. He said Payne often indulged in witty repartee, which at times seemed to shock the other members of the cabinet. And he goes on and on about how they all had their own unique things. He said, for example, on one occasion, Burbank was late, and when he came in, he was excited with so much enthusiasm and explained that he had been late because of an experiment he was making through which he hoped to be able to grow apples on any sort of tree. And then Payne chided him by reminding him that it was an apple which started all the trouble between man and woman. And so they all start talking amongst themselves. So I just found that part of this is all from his book, Think and Grow Rich. And I just found that part absolutely fascinating. And he says that, so he gives all sorts of examples of how he got to know them uniquely in those ways. And he says, the following morning, I was unable to tell whether I had imagined this, dreamt it, or had actually been awake. Like that's how real this all came to be for him. And so he says that he had to remain quiet on this subject for years because he knew he would be misunderstood if he described his actual experience. But then, after teaching this technique to so many people, he felt emboldened to include it in his book. He says, I still regard my cabinet meetings as being purely imaginary, but I feel entitled to suggest that while the members of my cabinet may be fictional and the meetings exist only in my imagination, they have led me into glorious paths of adventure, rekindled an appreciation of true greatness, encouraged creative endeavor, and emboldened the expression of honest thought. So he learned all sorts of things from them that he did not think he could actually have learned. And I think I've told this story many times, but he thought he was indulging his imagination a little bit too much. And so he stopped doing these nightly meetings and he started having recurring dreams where Abraham Lincoln came to him and said, Hey, we miss you. Why'd you stop the meetings? And then Lincoln came back to him and said, You need to start these meetings up again. There's important work we've decided you need to do. And that's when he got the material to write Think and Grow Rich. So is
Wow.
that imagination?
I'm thinking as you're speaking about people I've known over the years who have channeled or connected with or felt that they connected with composers or songwriters or artisans or for inspiration
Right.
because it's basically the same thing, and there is a richness and a reality that comes with it when you get to know who your team is. You start to feel that their presence, you recognize them. It's similar to you've shared this many times that throughout when your girls were growing up, you had a dear friend that you walked with all the time. And you would walk every day and you'd talk and you'd hash things out and you'd figure things out. We're pretty much doing the same thing when we show up to meet with our team. We're getting to know them, we're getting to understand them. They're helping us out more. I kind of look at it that way anyway.
I do too. And it's a great way to know ourselves because we're really good at tricking ourselves throughout the day, right? No,
Right.
no, this job is great. I love working 12 hours a day. It's all fine, you know? Or no, no, I feel great. I don't have to go for that checkup. Everything's good. But when we're alone with ourselves and our team, even if it is in our imagination or our visualization or whatever word you want to put in there, we are honest with ourselves.
Right. Because we are still have to be in the real world. We have to keep one foot in reality. But if staying connected with that logic and context and real world feedback, but then all the suggestions that you made of keep a little journal, keep a log. What did you sense? What happened when you followed what they brought through as a message for you? And look for that consistency and the supportive outcomes over time. And it really does help you build the confidence in the connection.
Yeah, it really is experience and trial and error and self-trust. I think that's important and requesting that deeper connection. Remember that dream I shared in my book about my guide showing me he and I standing on opposite sides of a forest. And he said, this is what happens when you pray. And the path through that forest got a little bit thicker and denser. And he said, and this is what happens when you ask for our help. And the path got deeper and more dense and clearly outlined. And he said, every time you reach out to connect with us, you are creating an easier path to connect with all of us. And I just think that visual has always helped me. It's a two-way street, like any relationship, and you can't expect them to do all the work for you. You have to do some work to solicit that relationship.
That's a beautiful, beautiful example. And they're not going to tell us what to do. They won't make the decisions for us.
Damn it,
That's
why not?
but
Sometimes it'd be nice, right?
it would be nice. It would be nice. And you've been really lucky with being able to say, have a specific sign for specific guides. If they're around, you've asked them for a sign. That may be one thing. And for my whatever is however you're wired is the way they're going to let you know they're around. If you're very clairvoyant and you do guided meditations really easily, you may get something more visual. Or if you're very clairsentient, you just sense a presence, you sense an emotion, you sense a feeling of support. It could be you hear a song lyric and like, oh my gosh, that's my guide telling me that I'm on the right track. I always hear this when I'm making these decisions. So I think that's another aspect of this is how they're coming through may be unique to you, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be the way everybody else does it.
Yeah, and you've got to pay attention to that as well. But this is why I'm such an advocate of daydreaming too, or just letting your mind wander, or just having at least an hour a day with nothing coming at you. Work or kids or AirPods in your ear or music, TV, scrolling. Just an hour a day where you're just with your thoughts. It doesn't even, let's just say 20 minutes, you know? Just a little walk with your dog or a walk around your neighborhood, or your whatever, where you're just letting your mind wander. That tends to be the best way that my guides can get my attention, because I've learned to pay attention to those quote unquote random thoughts that pop into my head when I allow myself that time to just daydream. And those are the ones that tend to be from my guides. I'll get a thought or a nudge or an idea, work on this project, or have you considered this, or have you reached out to this person, or I think so and so could need a phone call, or maybe a lunch out for a pick me up, or don't forget to add this person to your prayer list. And all of those things tend to be spot on.
Yes. Yes. And for me, it's showing up at the same time, same place every day. So if I journal and then I do a theta based meditation, a shamanic journey, I just, it's part of my day now. I meet with them, we visit. But if I miss it or scheduling or I oversleep or I don't have time or I have to catch a plane, whatever it might be, it throws me off a bit because I look forward to sharing time with them now. And it can be something that simple. It can be a few minutes. It doesn't have to be a big, as my mother would say, a big rigmarole.
So how long does it take you? Like, can you share your process with us?
It can be as little as 5 minutes. It can be as long as an hour. It really depends on what my schedule is like, but generally I shoot for about 20 minutes. And that's going into a deep meditative state of, and I think a key point, and you've mentioned this in your books as well, is invite them to be part of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So, so, so important. I think, I don't know, maybe it's different for everybody else, but it works for me the same as intuition. I'll still get signs, I'll get metaphors, I'll get idioms, I'll get symbolism, I'll get all of those things. It's very rarely of they sit me in a chair and say, "You need to do this, Denise. Enough is enough." I don't get that.
No, that's very, very true. I mean, it's not so specific. If I'm meditating, I don't really get those specific, like, call your friend Jen. But if I'm just walking, or I'm just driving, or I'm in the shower and I'm not thinking about anything, I've noticed they will pop specifics in like that.
Yeah. So just as an example, a couple days ago, I go in, I say the prayer and meditation when I start and ask for guidance and protection and invite them in. And I pray and I humbly ask for your blah, 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 all that stuff. But so the other day I went one and it was immediately the visual in my mind was with my dream team, with the gang who are dear friends, and we're walking down this path. And then if you've ever been on a horse and they start to go down a steep embankment, you have to lean back on the horse so that you can feel yourself physically lean back when the horse is going more down of an incline. And I had that physical feeling, and then I could feel the horse climbing up this narrow path. And you might get a feeling, and I did, of being out west. It was drier, it was more arid. And then we came out to this rock ledge, and it was overlooking this huge, huge expanse. And one of my guides put out his finger, and a ruby-throated hummingbird landed on his finger. And he took the hummingbird and he put it on my shoulder. And so I remembered that because I thought, okay, and it was as vivid as you and I are talking. And then he pointed, and we looked out, and there were butterflies, like this millions and millions and millions of butterflies, and they were very distinct colors. There was blue, purple, orange, and yellow, and they were making the patterns that starlings will make, the big, beautiful starling pattern where they just weave. But there were millions. It was so vivid that I could feel the wings. I could hear the wings because there were so many. So when I came out of the meditation, I looked up ruby-throated hummingbird. I looked up the different colors of the butterflies, and it was exactly what I was trying to find clarity about. So if you're talking to someone about that and they're going to say, well, you're just making shit up in your head, Denise. Well, if I am, it's helpful shit.
That's what I always, exactly. That it's a helpful imagination, darn it.
Right. And it's a nice respite, and it is phenomenal to me how, if we're willing and able and consistent about going within, it just becomes more and more and more.
Yeah,
And
it really does. And you might feel that you get conflicting messages. You know how we were talking on another episode about is it a sign? But I've learned that going back to your team for help and clarity can be incredibly insightful. For example, I was meditating, I think this was back in November, and I wasn't meditating for a reason. I was meditating just because it was relaxing and peaceful. And I think there's different types of energy you bring to those types of meditations, right?
right.
But I was just laying there and I was just focusing on being relaxful. And I saw the title of a book that I do want to write one day. And it was the perfect title. Do you remember me telling you about that?
I do, yes.
And
And
I
it
was
is the
so,
perfect title.
it is the perfect title. I don't want to say it, but
No,
but
no.
it's about my difficult relationship with my mom, but also in a broader way. And I was like, oh my gosh, am I really going to write this? And I thought, well, that's such, and I loved the way they showed me the title. They wrote it in cursive. It was really cool. Anyway, so I decided to kind of put my toe in the water, and I shared with you guys how I wrote a newsletter about the weirdness of grieving a parent that you had such a difficult relationship with, and how I don't actually miss her physical presence because she was so scary to be around. And that is the only newsletter I've ever sent out that didn't, it went to 389 people. And I don't understand that. And I reached out to the people that host my newsletter. They couldn't figure out the glitch. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is my mom saying, don't you dare write that book. And I totally freaked out because I was like, wait a minute. So I went into a meditation with a purpose, and I asked my guides. And they said what I heard back was you will write this book, but you're not ready right now. And what all of you need to realize is how powerful your subconscious mind is. And your subconscious mind was so afraid of sharing all of this that you started that glitch in the newsletter link.
Wow. It
And I
makes
don't,
sense.
it does make sense. I don't know if it's true. Like I said, that could be my imagination as well. But I do believe in the power of our subconscious thoughts and intentions. And so that could be. But so it gave me clarity. It wasn't that I wasn't reading the signs right. It wasn't that my mom is up there in heaven going, I'll haunt your ass if you write that book. It was my own subconscious blocks that were putting that up. And so that's fine. It's like I always say, there's several answers you can get to a question. Yes, no, maybe, but also not now.
And being open to how it comes in, because it's the same thing. Nature is going to be a huge part in my meditations because it's a huge part of my life. Writing is a huge part of your life, so they're going to bring that through. And the clarity, and I'm saying this with love and compassion, that title is so damn perfect. You
I
know it
know.
was divinely
I
orchestrated.
know, and I so do want to write it. I just so don't right now. And that's
It
okay.
in my mind's eye, though, I did see your lovely mom, Carol, like lighting up a cigarette saying, no, I don't think we're doing that.
Yeah, yeah, and flicking her long fingernails like not today. But I do think that what you all have to focus on, this is something I tell myself all the time, the way you are going to connect with your guides is unique to you. So, just as Denise was saying earlier, the types of guides you attract are going to be in line with your vibration and your energy and your unique needs, but also the way you connect with them is going to be unique to you. And you're only going to figure out the best way if you try a bunch of them. So, sitting down and meditating could be one, listening to a guided meditation could be another, immersing yourself in sound bath and healing sound frequencies could be one. It could be when you're doing something creative. I know a lot of people who will paint or finger paint or draw or doodle, Zentangle, just as a way to keep their mind busy so they can connect with their guides. Other people will say that they have those meditative experiences when they're knitting or crocheting, just the repetitive needles going in and out of the yarn allows their mind to fully relax. Or it could be walking. I've always found I get the best information when I'm doing something, when I'm walking or driving, it tends to be the best for me. But again, you have to try all of those different ones and others I'm forgetting to mention and see what resonates with you and your team.
And if you're in that place of I'm not getting anything, I'm not making a connection, it's dust bunnies and tumbleweeds, there's nobody there for me. It just take that time and relax and breathe and enjoy and be present. I promise the more you show up, the easier it gets.
Yeah, and for some people it's going to take longer. It depends on how your brain works. If you're very, very left brain, it's going to take you longer to connect with your team. But no time spent on this inner search is wasted.
And that's the key. This isn't about reaching outside of yourself. They always say, "Oh, go within, go within," but this really is about learning to trust what's already within you. I feel like our team, our guides, they shine a light on that for us. They help us reconnect with our own inner knowing, and it encourages patience and curiosity. But it just maybe that's what you can start with this week is say, what's one little way that I can listen more closely or pay attention a little bit more to what they're trying to tell me.
You know what one book really influenced me on that interior journey was The Interior Castle by St. Teresa of Avila. And I recommend if anyone wants to read it, you've got to get the one that was edited by Marabi Starr, Starr. Because I've read The Interior Castle, the OG, and I was like, no, it was just too many these and thous and I don't know what. But Marabi Starr edited it for our modern language. So it's a very easy read and a beautiful read about how there are these rooms inside of us that we have to go through. And she compares it to a castle, and first you got to get over the moat, then you got to get to the hallway. But she talks about how our spiritual journey is a progression through all of these rooms and we're going deeper and deeper and deeper into the core of union with our soul. And so some of us who are trying to connect with our guides are still trying to traverse the moat around the castle of our soul. And so, yes, it's going to take a little bit longer, but every step is worth the journey.
Oh, that's interesting. It's very interesting. Um,
Well, I
and
think it's so cool to think about how people for centuries and millennia have been on this same journey that we are on. And every single philosopher and mystic has written about how everything we need to know can be found inside of us, meaning through interior reflection, through inner knowing, and through trusting of the self and making time for this quiet space in our life.
right. It's I love that it's access for everybody. This has
Yeah.
nothing to do with any of the limitations that might be with location, demographics, finances, culture. It's none of that. We all have this ability. We all have this same equal playing field, which is always my favorite. I love, love, love that.
Well, I want to share with you what Napoleon Hill said about creating your own council, only so I can ask you who you think would be on yours.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So this is really interesting. He says when you create your own imagine, so this is different from Guides and Angels, but maybe not. So this is about really learning to cultivate aspects of your imagination to attempt to reach out and find your guides. But first, you just create your own counsel. And so they can be living or dead, they can be real or fictional, which I thought was interesting. They can be famous or not famous. So no one is perfect. So you might admire someone and then find out they did something you really dislike. And that's going to happen pretty much with every hero you study. But choose the qualities that you admire the most about them, right? Like take FDR. He cheated on his wife and was definitely a true mama's boy, but he was a really good president who helped establish Social Security, welfare, rights for workers, and helped steer us through World War II. So what you want to do is pick the 9 people who are going to be on your council. Or you could start small and just pick 4 or 5 people. But once you've chosen your group of people, then you want to study them. Read their biographies, read their letters, watch interviews or documentaries about them, get to know them as much as possible, bring them to life. And then you can start your meetings with them. And you want to choose an imaginary location, like a library, a cozy pub, a table outside by the ocean, and have fun with the setting. And then mentally send out your invitation and create a routine around this. Maybe this becomes part of your meditation practice, or maybe, like Napoleon Hill, you do this at night as you're falling asleep. What this is going to do for you is it's going to help you realize that you do have access to interior knowledge and that you can learn to think outside of the box when you're trying to get insight and answers or options to problems that you're struggling with. And it's going to prime your subconscious to be ready for intercessory help from your actual guides and angels. So if you have always had an incredibly difficult time connecting with your team, maybe start here with creating your own imaginary council. What do you think about that?
I think it's a great idea. I think for some people it's going to be wonderful, and they would immediately say, "Oh, I want so and so, and this person, and that person." I, it's a very specific and unique to whoever would do it.
And it's personal, isn't it? Like I
Hmm.
was thinking, I'm not going to ask Denise to share right now who's going to be on her team because it does feel very personal. But it's fun to think about
Yeah,
who you would put on your team.
and I honestly I don't know who I would ask to be on the team. If you just said, "Oh, well, who's on you?" I would have to really think about that. Where do I want to go for guidance, for insight, for support? Where I am on my path right now, because I think that's another variable, isn't it? Who's on the team for what's going on in your life at this point, rather than a generic that you're with the same team for the whole duration. I don't know.
No, I think that's an excellent point because I have created dream teams for my writing goals, and they're completely different from my spiritual dream team of just insight and inner knowing. Like St. Teresa of Avila is definitely on that dream team for my spiritual insight, as is St. Hildegard, because those are 2 badass, strong women who really learned how to navigate through a patriarchal system in some amazing ways that I completely admire. But in terms of writing, I have different people on that team.
See, it's perfect.
Yeah, it really is. I love it. So I think that's a good thing to consider starting out if you have never really felt your guides or your angels around you. And then you'll get used to trying to visualize and create that sensation. And it's fun and it makes meditating fun.
Yes, it makes it something to look forward to, not something else to just get through.
Yeah, exactly. Well, do you have any final tips before we wrap up?
I think have fun with it and be open. Really, that's simplistic, but it is amazing how much they'll let you know they're around if you're willing to lower the drawbridge.
Yes. Oh, and I forgot to add too, because that's a huge element of my book, Heavenly Alliance, is calling on your ancestors for help. Don't forget to add them to your team as well. People who've gone before you, whom you admire, and do your best to find out everything you can about them too.
Right. And we did that in the course that I've done the last couple of years that will be offering again in the fall. And that's one of the things we do is really get to know them as people because often the work that we're doing in this lifetime is something that they may have experienced or they may have not been able to complete. So when you step in and you say, I'm going to make this choice, write this book, leave this situation, do whatever, it's validating for them and they have ways they can help you. So,
Yes, exactly. And one meditation I've started doing that's really helpful is I will meditate visualizing me and all the ancestors who have gone before me. I've done this a lot with my female ancestors, and I will visualize a symbol of love and gratitude. So usually it's like a golden ball of sun, and I will pass it back to them to send that love and healing and gratitude back to them. And if you think meditation is in your imagination and you do a meditation like that, where you're giving something back rather than asking for something, the amount of love that fills your whole body is not imaginative. It's a beautiful thing to do.
it truly, truly is.
It's so important to give back to them because we're always asking them to do stuff.
Yes, incredibly important to say thank you. I always thank them. I tell them I love them. I tell them I appreciate them because I do.
Yeah. I like that you have your students look up information about their ancestors because we have to do that in order to connect them, paint them back to life, and really start to solicit that relationship with them. What are some of your favorite resources
Um,
besides living family members?
well, I mean, you can go through the basic ones of Ancestry Archives, newspapers.com. There's all of those different things. But I think when you integrate those with meditation, with journaling, with channeling, with mediumship, with all of the other ways of doing a timeline of what was going on in their life, and you understand what it was like to live in 1849 in a certain part of the world and what they faced. It's phenomenal the difference that it makes in your daily life here and helps understand a lot of, the whole thing of, oh, there's hidden trauma or there's ancestral patterns or there's this, we've talked about that so many times. When you really start to see why and you understand that there was a human being connected to that and that you have the cellular memory, or in a case of if you were someone was adopted into a family or raised with a different family, you're still going to have that shared connection that they'll help you with.
Yes.
And every time, because I always invite the people who have taken that class from previous to do it again, just as a kind of an audit situation, and they get even more the second time or more the third time because it doesn't just end the first time you do this work. It continues to grow and evolve as you do.
And then when you do the meditation and you think, oh my gosh, I feel like I connected with my great great grandmother, I don't know, maybe. And then you couple that with ancestry or archive or newspaper research and you're able to validate it. Is that not the
Right.
coolest?
Right. And there's so many, there's a ton. Those are just three really simplistic, quick, out of the gate ones. But it's interesting to me because it is a big rabbit hole, and you can start to look at when were people drafted, how old were they, who else was in the family, who did they leave behind. I mean, it's the epitome of painting them back to life.
Well, it's a fantastic way to really build your team because we need as much help and support on this Earth School as we can get. And so you do want to remember that you do have guardian angels on your team and spirit guides, but also your loved ones who have gone before you, and many of whom you've never even met, but they still love you because you're family. And I think it's important to remember to cultivate all of them for help and support and guidance. So we hope this has given you a lot to think about. Again, the book we mentioned was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Have a great week, everyone, filled with your own signs and synchronicities from your dream team. Remember, as always, to show up, do great work, and share your light.
Take care.